How's it going, everyone? We are coming up on one of the most packed months of game releases, really, I might say, of all time. Like, February is loaded with so many big game releases, and February, generally speaking, is usually every year a month packed with game releases. I just remember a few years ago, February of 2022, we had Horizon Forbidden West, Dying Light 2, and Elden Ring in the same month, and I would say that this February, even bigger than that February. Now, before we get into this video, I just want to ask you guys, please like this video and do leave a comment with your thoughts. It really does help out the channel a lot, and it is much appreciated. There are a lot of games to go over, so let's just get right into it, and let's get it started with the biggest game release of February, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Yes, I can say that emphatically that FF7 Rebirth is the biggest game of February. It is the follow-up to the Final Fantasy VII Remake, a timed exclusive for the PlayStation 5. Looks like it'll be a 3-month timed exclusivity period, but this is the direct follow-up to the remake that released back in 2020, and all things considered, 4 years we're getting the sequel. I think that's a pretty good turnaround time, especially for Square Enix. Sometimes we're kept waiting a long time for these games, but FF7 Rebirth will be a next-generation title, and while Square Enix is saying that you can play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth without playing the remake, I'm sure they'll recap the remake and do whatever they need to do, but obviously, I would highly recommend you to play the remake. Now, if you pre-order Final Fantasy VII Rebirth digitally, you will get a free copy of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, so if you haven't played Intergrade, I would highly recommend to do that, but also, Best Buy is offering a steelbook for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We did an entire video looking at that. They also offered a steelbook with Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. That steelbook is now worth $70, but, you know, I'll let you guys make your decision on what version of the game you want to pick up. Nonetheless, FF7 Rebirth is going to encapsulate the portion where Final Fantasy VII really hits its stride. I'm sure Part 3 is going to be great as well, but Rebirth is where things really get going. We're going to have a much bigger world to explore, and we're going to get to some key and critical plot and story elements as well. Obviously, the 7 Remake shaked some things up, and that's why I'm even more excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because I don't know what to entirely expect. I don't know where Square Enix is gonna pivot, and that's incredibly exciting for me. Look, from a gameplay and exploration standpoint, it's gonna have a ton of content. The gameplay is gonna be super enjoyable, but from a narrative standpoint, we're kind of at a little bit of an unknown after the ending and the conclusion to FF7 Remake, and that has me pretty damn excited. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is scheduled for a release on February 29th. Moving on to another JRPG of an iconic franchise as well, we've got Persona 3 Reload, the ground-up remake of Persona 3, the game that is much like Fallout 3 in that Persona 3 is the game that people look at that got them into Persona. Obviously, Persona has exploded in popularity since the release of Persona 5, and now it's one of the more popular JRPG franchises, and obviously, from a reception standpoint, one of the most consistently well-received Japanese RPG franchises as well. Persona 3 was a fantastic game on the PlayStation 2, and now you're getting it with better visuals, quality of life improvements, more dialogue, and a lot has been improved upon the original game. Yes, it's at a $70 price tag, much like FF7 Rebirth. $70 seems to be the standard with a lot of games these days, but given the amount of content you're gonna get with a Persona 3, I think it's gonna be well worth it, and a lot of you guys already played it back in the day on the PS2, but there's also gonna be a considerable amount of people that check out Persona 3 for the first time. You're in for an incredible game when it comes to the narrative, the turn-based battle system, the soundtrack is awesome. Persona 3's just got a lot going for it, and Persona 3 Reload is almost here. It'll be dropping on February the 2nd. Next up, we got another JRPG, Granblue Fantasy Relink. Now, with Granblue Fantasy Relink, if you do buy the game digitally, you'll be able to play it on January 29th. The physical version of the game comes out on February the 1st, so kind of interesting they're doing that. They're not doing any sort of early access tie-in gimmick with the deluxe edition or anything like that. It's just if you buy the game digitally, you'll get it a little bit early. I don't know what the reasoning for that is, but that is what's going on. Granblue Fantasy Relink is a game that we've been following for years and years. I remember doing videos about this game back in like 2017 or 2018, and it's just kind of surreal to see it finally come out. From a stylistic standpoint, the visuals look awesome, the gameplay is super fast-paced, and remember, there is a demo available right now on the PlayStation Store, so if you have yet to play it, Go play that. I'm sure that'll get you more excited for the game. I know some people are going to be a little bit selective with the JRPGs they pick up in February, given that there are 3 major ones, but I think a lot of you guys that are watching this video are picking up all 3, as am I, so very excited for that. Next up, we got Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Look, I've been pretty down on this game, and a lot of you guys have watched our content covering the game, and some of you guys disagree with how pessimistic I am towards this game, but it's Rocksteady's first release in 9 years. There's more of a live service element baked into the game that does have me a little bit pessimistic and questioning what kind of game this is really going to be and how it's going to be received. The reviews are not going to go up until post-game launch because they're waiting for the servers to go live until they offer review codes, which I find pretty interesting. That is a little bit worrying. The previews weren't all too great, but it's still Rocksteady at the end of the day. It is an iconic IP like Suicide Squad, so many iconic characters, co-op emphasis on it as well. We'll see how it turns out. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League does officially drop on February 2nd, but there is an early access gimmick with the deluxe edition. You'll be able to play it on January 30th if you do buy the $100 deluxe edition. Next up, Jujutsu Kaisen is making its first foray into the gaming realm with Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash. We just had the wrap-up of Season 2, very well received, and now we have this arena fighter that obviously Bandai Namco is very familiar with doing games like this. We had one with My Hero, we have one, and we have a big franchise in Naruto Storm as well. Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash is interesting because it's really emphasizing the 2v2 battles. That is one of the elements that does set Jujutsu Kaisen apart from the other arena fighters, and there will be a single player component that'll be covering the first season as well as Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the movie, so you'll have all that content to go through. I'm sure that this is going to be a game mostly for fans, and I foresee that, you know, non-fans obviously aren't going to check it out. That's generally the case with these kinds of games, but Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash out on February the 2nd. Next up, we have a pretty notable release, a PlayStation Plus free game day 1 in Foamstars. Now, you're going to require a PlayStation Plus subscription to play Foamstars because it's a multiplayer game, and it is a little bit over the top, very reminiscent of one Splatoon. Introducing Foamstars, the new 4v4 online party shooter. Use foam to build terrain, creating slippery surfaces to serve around the arena at high speed to help defend from enemy attacks or create vantage points to take out opponents. It is an interesting game, and from the beta and the early access, a lot of people really did enjoy. The game notes smash the star. After knocking out 7 enemy players, the best player on the opposing team will be chosen as the star player. Win by knocking out the opposing team star player. That is one of the game modes. You've got Happy Bath Survival Battle, where 2 players are placed in the arena and 2 out of the arena knock out opponents in the arena to win. And then Rubber Duck Party, get ready for a foam party like no other. Teams must race to the center of the stage and fight for possession of the rubber duck. Yeah, it's a little wacky there, but Foamstars is dropping on PS4 and PS5 on February the 6th, and again, if you're a Plus subscriber, it will be absolutely free, and then after the February month wraps up, it will be a $30 purchase. Remember, you require a Plus subscription to play the game, so I would highly recommend you to get it as soon as possible when it drops on February 6th, so it's in your library. Next up, kind of a surprising remake. We got 2 major remakes if you want to look at FF7 Rebirth as a remake, since they're changing some things, but we got FF7 Rebirth, we got Persona 3 Reload, we also have Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, one that came out of left field, but a game that I really do talk up. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, while it is on the shorter side, tells a very, very compelling and engaging narrative. I think it's going to be a worthwhile game to go through, especially if you've never played it. Now, the question is, what is it going to be priced at? I think anything over $30 is a little bit too much, and even at $30 it might be too much, given that the original still holds up decently, and that goes on sale for like sub $5, so just keep that in mind. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons Remake drops on February 28th. Next up, we have the new action-adventure game, The Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is a story-driven dark fantasy adventure game with action elements and difficult moral choices based on the best-selling Inquisitor book. The game takes place in an alternative religious timeline. Once nailed to the cross in near death, Jesus becomes consumed by utter rage. He breaks free and unleashes violent vengeance on the non-believers. Centuries pass, and now an army of zealot Inquisitors brutally enforce the faith in this blood-soaked church. You're an Inquisitor in God's service sent to the town, which is plagued by a series of mysteries and sins. Solve the various cases and crimes of those who have transgressed against the faith. The Inquisitor has an interesting backdrop. It drops on February the 8th. Next up, Banishers: Ghost of New Eden is coming from Don't Nod and Focus Entertainment on February the 13th. This game was supposed to come out back in November. They ended up pushing it because November was pretty packed with game releases, end of October into November. And I just feel like, man, now you're dropping in the midst of February, and I feel like it's an even worse time to release this game in terms of there being competition, but really, you're not going to get away from competition, so it is what it is. What I will say is Banishers: Ghost of New Eden, while it's falling under the radar, It looks fantastic. Don't Nod is an incredibly talented studio that most of you guys probably know them for their work on Life is Strange, but they also did Vampire, which was kind of like a AA action RPG. Didn't have a super high budget attached to it. Banishers, on the other hand, this looks like a level up from Vampire as well. Looks like a pretty compelling action RPG. Great visuals. Will be interesting to see how this one turns out. Banishers Ghosts of New Eden drops on February the 13th. Next up, here's a major release going a little bit under the radar as well. Tomb Raider 1-3 Remastered. Dive into the original Tomb Raider trilogy for the very first time. Immerse yourself in the full journey inclusive of all expansions and hidden levels presented on contemporary platforms in this ultimate collection. Tomb Raider 1-3 Remastered hits all major platforms and it drops on February 14th. Next up, we have some upgraded releases of great JRPGs, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4. Now, obviously, when it comes to Legend of Heroes, these games are incredibly narrative-driven, and I highly recommend you to play Cold Steel 1 and 2 at the very least. And a lot of people will push back on that thought, saying that you need to play the Sky Trilogy, then you need to play the Crossbell arc, and then you can start Cold Steel. Yes, I get it. At the very least, with Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel, I highly recommend you to play Cold Steel 1 and 2 before you jump into 3 and 4, but 3 and 4 will be headed to PS5 on February 16th. Next up, here's a game that's kind of coming out of nowhere in terms of it being released. Now, it's been announced for quite a while, saw several delays. Skull and Bones from Ubisoft is finally dropping on February 16th, and man oh man, am I skeptical on how this game is going to turn out, based on the fact that we saw a plethora of delays, and it's kind of releasing out of nowhere in terms of this release coming together. It is the golden age of piracy. Renegade captains command the most powerful weapons on Earth, warships. You are a pirate captain who has refused the king's pardon and sailed from the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean, an untamed frontier full of lavish riches. However, these waters are also a battleground where far-reaching colonial empires, powerful trading corporations, and ruthless pirate gangs clash. In order to survive, you'll have to build a lethal fleet, prey upon lucrative trade routes, and ally with other pirates. It's going to be a game that's really reliant on its live service elements, and you guys know how Ubisoft deals with that. We'll see how the game turns out. It's been announced and revealed for so long, and you can go back to Assassin's Creed 4's naval combat that really set the table for Skull and Bones becoming a thing. But, you know, now in 2014, we're finally going to be able to play the game. It drops on February 16th. Next up, we have Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Daemonhunters. Lead humanity's greatest weapons of Grey Knights in this fast-paced, turn-based tactical RPG. Root out and purge a galaxy-spanning plague in a cinematic, story-driven campaign using the tactics and talents of your own personalized squad of Daemonhunters. Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Daemonhunters drops on February 20th. Next up, we have Slave Zero X, an incredibly stylish 2.5D action game set in the biopunk world of Slave Zero from '99. Run and slash your way through a dystopian future in this character action game, which will resonate with fans of Devil May Cry, Strider, and Guilty Gear. Slave Zero X drops on February 21st. Next up, a game that a lot of people are looking forward to, and if you know about it, you're probably interested in it, and that is Pacific Drive. Pacific Drive is a very, very unique survival game, a run-based first-person driving survival game. As a true roguelike, your car is your only companion based out of an abandoned garage. You'll be repairing, upgrading, and outfitting it to stay safe from the dangers that surround you each excursion into the zone. Together, the two of you will drive deep into the surreal woods of the Pacific Northwest, chase long-forgotten mysteries, and encounter strange and dangerous anomalies, all as you make your way through the heart of the Olympic exclusion zone. The game is a budget title priced at only $29.99. Looks like a pretty unique game and one that aesthetically looks fantastic. The setting is great, and Pacific Drive will be dropping on February 22nd. Next up, we have Helldivers 2, the follow-up from Helldivers 1 from Arrowhead Games. If you didn't play Helldivers 1, it was an over-the-top chaotic co-op title, and Helldivers 2 brings it up a little bit, now being a full-on third-person game. And this is one that I highly recommend that if you're gonna get into it, do have a squad of friends that's picking it up as well. Obviously, you can go online and whatnot, and it's just gonna be a very, very over-the-top, hectic co-op experience. Don't expect anything too serious, but do expect a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness, and I think Helldivers 2 is ultimately gonna be a co-op title a lot of people enjoy, and it is priced at only $39.99, so definitely a compelling price point at that. Helldivers 2 drops on February 8th. Next up, we have King Arthur Knight's Tale. Based on the Arthurian mythology, King Arthur Knight's Tale is a turn-based tactical RPG, a unique hybrid between turn-based tactical games and traditional character-centric RPGs. King Arthur Knight's Tale is a modern retelling of the classic mythology story, filtered through the dark fantasy tropes, a twist on the traditional tales of chivalry. The game's been very well received on PC, and now it's hitting PlayStation 5 on February 22nd. Next up, we have Ultros, which is described as a psychedelic Metroidvania where you wake up stranded on the sarcophagus, trapped in a loop of a black hole. You will have to explore the sarcophagus and meet its inhabitants to understand the parts you play. Has a super unique and slick art style, looks fantastic from a visual standpoint, and one of those games that's going really under the radar right now that I think as soon as you see this game, I feel like it will captivate a lot of people. Again, from an aesthetic standpoint, it looks fantastic, and you'll experience a brutal, intimate, close-quarter combat with cosmic life forms driven by a sense of urgency where precision is paramount and every cut of your blade counts, and a mysterious layered loop is noted as well. Ultros is due out on February 13th. And lastly, we have Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster, created in collaboration with Lucasfilm's games and fully remastered. Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster supports up to 4K and 120 FPS. It's a beloved game out of Star Wars titles, and now it's going to see all modern improvements. Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered drops on February 28th. And that is going to do it for me. Again, February, one of the most loaded months of game releases ever, especially if you're a JRPG fan, with FF7 Rebirth, Persona 3 Reload, Granblue Fantasy Relink at the helm of everything. But you've got Suicide Squad, you've got Skull and Bones, you've got so many other games dropping as well. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, really a loaded month across the board with a lot of variety. But that's gonna do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.